Hello, Tennessee. Let's get this started. My name is Santiago Escanape. I'm running for the governorship of the state of Tennessee. I'm running to be governor, the 51st governor of the state of Tennessee. I'm running on the platform of modernization and defense. That's modernization and defense. I've spoken in the most recent presentation about modernization. Today I'm going to speak about defense. Very important subject matter. Defense means the ability of a state to protect itself against unnecessary risks. We want to avoid unnecessary risks that fall upon the population, risks that fall upon our institutions. We want to avoid unnecessary risks, not risks of all types, but risks that are unhealthy or are unwanted in the system. And when we're removing those risks, we're properly defending a state. We're properly defending a population residing within a state. So modernization and defense is very important. I've said that we want Tennessee to lead by example. We want Tennessee to be the equivalent of the defense capital of the United States, because we already have so many things going for us in this category. Between Fort Campbell, Holston Army Base, Arnold Air Force Base, Milan Air Force Base, now primarily an Army base. We have these institutions that are shining beacons, if you will, and they're doing the best they can to exemplify defense mantra. But the interoperability needs to improve, and we actually need to add more defense than we currently have in order to tackle some of our largest problems, one of them being the weather. So what we need is a new armed forces base within the state of Tennessee, and it's going to be primarily a Space Force headquarters that we add, because we need more aeronautical capacity, more aerospace development capacity, where we're developing the right technology to prevent against risks that are occurring now in the present and maybe more severe here in the future. So my administration wants to establish a new armed forces base where what we already have within the state is utilized, but more effectively so. So we're still going to utilize our Army, our Marines, our Navy, our Air Force, and we're going to add Space Force to the equation. So that way all branches of the armed forces are represented in our defense package if Santiago Escanape wins the governorship in 2026, in November of 2026. So I speak about the weather as one risk that I think we can mitigate. We can, at the very least, be very prepared for it. We can mitigate against it. We can prevent it altogether if we have the proper defense investment, the defense infrastructure investment, defense technology investment. Because I don't want to hear any more headlines about a severe storm wipes out a community in Tennessee, or a flood wipes out a community in Tennessee. I'm sick of those downer articles. So we want to eliminate those risks by being more defense prone, by being more defense effective, more preparedness as far as our defense tactics militarily. I think I'm the first politician in the country to bring up the issue of natural disaster prevention. Prevent natural disasters. Sounds far-fetched, but with the technology that we have, as far as satellites and drones and everything else, it's very much within reach. And we want to be at the leadership forefront as far as eliminating those weather-oriented risks, so that the average Tennessean doesn't have to worry about average night in the fall or in the winter or in the spring, watching television, wondering if this house is going to disappear or if this house is going to survive, so on and so forth. The storms are expensive and they're deadly, and we want to eliminate them from the equation. And that's natural disaster prevention, which primarily means preparedness, mitigation, because you don't want to overpromise that we eliminate the storms altogether, but mitigation of those storms, we mitigate against those risks, And yes, ideally we prevent them altogether in a 4-year time period. We want to keep track of all the days where we don't have a major storm in the state of Tennessee. Which goes back to my point about data. When I spoke in the previous presentation about modernization of Tennessee, how our data architecture needs to be perfect, needs to be pristine. Well, part of having the best data means characterizing the data in a positive light, meaning we want to count all the days where we don't have a storm, and we want to present that data to the public so that we can highlight all the notable accomplishments, achievements that we do accomplish, as opposed to dwelling on only bad news, which does happen, but it can happen less so. So as far as defense, weather is one type of risk. We also want to prevent against technological risks. It's not just protecting our population, but we need to protect our institutions from technological hacks, from other forms of technological harm, also geopolitical risks caused by other countries that we should get along with, but Russia, China, etc. As Commander-in-Chief, I need to be prepared on that front, even though I'm not governing the entire United States, but only one state. It's still a very important state in terms of defense, so we need to be prepared for everything. But natural disaster prevention, technological harm prevention, the technology hacks, cybersecurity, these are all areas that we can improve upon, and adding the Space Force capability to the package will do away with these risks a lot more so. So we're talking about a more effective defense presentation in the state of Tennessee, one that will be historically memorable and one that can achieve great results. So modernization and defense. Tennessee wants to be the capital, the defense capital of the United States, meaning when they think of our state, they want to think of very strong defense resources. And the Space Force is going to make that a reality. It's going to help us for that to happen. We already have so many impressive things. We want to heighten the package, heighten the presentation, and that way things will be that much more effective when we consider the grand scheme of things. I think that's all for now. These are just some notes on defense generally. We need to protect against unnecessary risks. It also has to do with things like gun violence. Tennessee signed on for 3 terms of public safety. Public safety is one way to view it. It deals more with law enforcement. Defense implicates the armed forces more. So we transitioned some from public safety to general defense. And we do that because defense can also move forward our economy. Establishing a new base in a military base in the state of Tennessee will also pick up the economy. It leads to a more stable economy. It also leads to job creation. It leads to increased spending in certain communities that surround the base. And all in all, it's a very good thing. All the literature, all the scholarly publications suggest that to be the case. So within 4 years, I want to establish a new Armed Forces base within Tennessee. This is to highlight our defense prowess, our defense capabilities, so that we're more notable on the map, we're more respected on the map. When people think of the state of Tennessee, they think of the state having ample resources as far as everything that's possible in terms of our armed forces, which we respect and we adore so much. Modernization and defense, that's the platform. We're going to modernize Tennessee, and we're going to defend Tennessee. We're going to defend all 7 million Tennesseans very effectively. That's the priority going into the governor's office every day. Those 7 million people have to be safe. They have to have the ability to live prosperous lives, to participate in industry, to participate in the economy, and all those things need to be adequately protected, effectively protected, so that we have a well-defended state, an adequately protected state. So modernization and defense, and today I'm speaking some about defense. We need to eliminate the risks, mass shootings, severe weather, inclement weather. There's few situations that leave governors in very bad positions. There's few news stories that can really be a damper on the state of things. One example is a mass shooting. Well, the defense category mitigates against those risks severely. It does away with those risks tremendously. The other is that of a major storm where we have to declare it an emergency with the federal government. Well, with natural disaster prevention, I'm the first politician in the entire country to bring up this as part of a platform. Here in 2026, the first time it ever gets mentioned. With natural disaster prevention, we're going to prevent these storms so that we're left in a less precarious position in terms of wind patterns, windstorms, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, and other related weather phenomena. So modernization and defense, it should be very exciting. It should be a very successful 4 years. 4 years where we look back on it and we think impressive, especially when we characterize the data differently. When we do our data overhaul with the modernization and the modernization committee that we put in place, when we talk about our data overhaul, when we improve the data and we have the best data, we're going to characterize all the data in a positive light. That's going to pick up the confidence levels of the state tremendously, so that we don't dwell only on the bad, but we dwell on how many successful things happened, how many non-incidents happened, as opposed to how many negative incidents did happen. It's a recharacterization, a representation of data patterns that for years have been stuck in a negative light. We can turn it around both realistically and in the way information and data is presented to the public in the state of Tennessee. So that correlates to both modernization, the data overhaul, and when we connect that to our defense infrastructure, our defense spending, our defense technology, so that it's the best that it's ever been, it's the best in the entire country, we're going to have very impressive results. Because when I speak about the 4 years, 2027 to 2031, those are the 4 years where I'm going to be governor, ideally. We're going to have that GDP of 7 to 9%. Nationally, we're at 2% GDP. I want our state to have a GDP of 7 to 9%. We're going to have a robust economy, a very strong, effective economy, and we're going to be very well defended to the point where our reputation starts to change. People think of Tennessee, they think they've got armed forces prowess. They have armed forces capability out the wazoo. One of the few states that would introduce a new armed forces base in 4 years' time. And they're willing to do it. I speak to them on a regular basis, and it's grounded in reality that this takes place and happens, becomes a reality. So I'm Santiago Escanape. I'm running for governor of the state of Tennessee. I want to be the 51st governor of the state of Tennessee, and it's going to be a very important one because with modernization and defense, it's a sweeping platform. It covers all the bases. It covers all the needs of the state of Tennessee, and it has the opportunity to be timeless, to be very memorable historically speaking. That's all for now. I'm signing out. Santiago Escanape, running to be governor of Tennessee in 2026. Vote for me. Everyone go out there and vote. And no regrets. 4 years go by. We didn't regret anything. We didn't vote for an establishment candidate. We didn't vote for a candidate that just puts up a media poster and gets elected as an imposter. 4 years go by, no regrets, no regret-based voting, no regret-based results. Instead, we think back and we think impressive results, well worth it, transformational change, meaningful change, long-lasting change, impactful change, things that improved for the better, and with the data metrics, we were able to track the improvements, keep track of the improvements, and let Tennesseans know this is how we're improving things on a daily basis. That's why the data is so very important. I can't stop talking about data to the point where it's getting annoying, but our data architecture, our data collaboration needs to be pristine, needs to be perfect. And that's how we can recharacterize the state from being down in the doldrums to being the pinnacle of success and something to emulate at a leadership level, both nationally and globally speaking. I'm Santiago Escanape. I want to be governor of the state of Tennessee In the end, impressive results, not regrets, but impressive results. That's what we're aiming for with modernization and defense. Modernization and defense. We're going to modernize the state of Tennessee, and we're going to defend the state of Tennessee. All 7 million Tennesseans, all 3 geographic regions of Tennessee, they're going to be well defended, well protected with a new armed forces base, a newly established armed forces base, and all the perks that come with that, all the advantages that come with establishing a new base, a brand new facility, training grounds, and everything. Thank you so much for listening. I'm signing out. Santiago, vote on November 3rd, 2026. Go out there and vote. Thank you, and God bless you.